What's going on, Orange Nation? This is Neil Adler with the latest episode of Syracuse Central via the Fan Arch Network, and we're counting down the days till week one, Syracuse football versus number 24 Tennessee in Atlanta, Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I hope a lot of Orange fans are going to make it down to the game. I can't wait to watch it. I think Syracuse is going to hold their own and might even spring the upset. But what I wanted to talk about today is, just looking at different betting websites and odds and that sort of thing. And I'm curious what, other fans think. So feel free to drop some comments in the comment section. Syracuse right now is looking at a underdog roll of about 13 and a half points. That's the spread right now. And the over-under is up. I looked earlier today. It was 50.5 points. So I'm thinking to myself, now, of course, I just want Syracuse to win the game, and I'm not really a gambler per se. I'm always curious about odds and spreads, and it gives a sense of what the guys and gals out in Vegas think about a game and all that stuff. So I guess to me, the main thing is 13 and a half. I mean, that's almost two touchdowns. That's a big spread. And I know Syracuse comes into this game. They're not in the preseason top 25 polls. They went 10-3 last year. Steve Angeli's the quarterback. He's going to replace Kyle McCord. Lots of changes on both sides of the field and in special teams. And a difficult schedule. Neutral site game, although let's be honest, Knoxville, Tennessee is a lot closer to Atlanta than Central New York. Tennessee, on the other hand, made the CFP last year, the 12-team college football playoff. The Volunteers have a new quarterback as well. We'll have to see how their offense is in 2025. Their defense should be top 10, top 5 in the country again, at least on paper again this year. So I guess my thinking with this is, and look, I know I host a Syracuse show. I write about Syracuse for other outlets. I'm an alum. I have orange colored glasses on. But just putting that to the side for the second, I think Syracuse is going to cover this. Now, are they going to win the game? If I had to pick one of the two teams, just, straight up put my bias to the side, I'd probably pick Tennessee. Do I think Syracuse can win? Sure. Do I think that both teams have, question marks or unproven, quarterbacks that are new to the system and we just don't know how it's all going to look? Yeah, absolutely. Does Tennessee on paper probably have a better defense? Sure. Hopefully Syracuse's defense will be better than it was last year. I didn't think their defense was all that great. They gave up a lot of points. Syracuse won a lot of close games with Kyle McCord leading the country in passing yards. I'm not complaining. Fran Brown and company did a great job last year. But this schedule is brutal on paper. Tennessee, road ACC games, Clemson, SMU, Georgia Tech, Miami. Have to go to Notre Dame in late November. Notre Dame was the runner-up in the CFP this past year. That's brutal. So getting back to this Tennessee-Syracuse game in Atlanta, I think Syracuse can cover that spread. And again, if I was a betting person, and I'm not giving betting advice here. Let's be crystal clear. But since the game is 9-ish days away, I'm just kind of looking at different, elements to the game. The over/under 50 and a half. I think I'd take the under on that because a couple things. Number one, it's week one. Could there be week one opening week jitters? It's at a neutral site. Tennessee probably will have more fans there, but it's a neutral site, so I don't necessarily think either team has, the home field advantage per se. Again, new quarterbacks. I don't know how explosive Syracuse's offense is going to be this year. Same can be said about Tennessee. I think Syracuse's defense could be better than last year. I think Tennessee's defense is going to be excellent again this year. So with all that being said, I think it's not going to be like a really, really high scoring game, but I could be wrong. It could be they could score 80 points between the two of them. But the bottom line is, do I think that Syracuse would cover? Again, not providing betting advice, but yeah, I think they'll cover. Do I think 13 and a half or 14 points is too big of a spread? Again, I'm not in that field, the odds making field, but that's a big spread. Again, keeping in mind that it's not like, Syracuse was some scrub team last year. Tennessee, yes, was a top 10 team, CFP, a year ago. Syracuse was they finished number 20 in the final AP poll, 10-3. I think they both had a 10-3 record. Again, Tennessee is ranked number 24 in the AP, the preseason AP poll. Syracuse isn't ranked, but it's again, I don't see the 14 points. I don't. I see it being a close game. Do I think Syracuse is going to win? Not necessarily. Do I think Syracuse can win? Absolutely. So we'll see what happens. Hey, listen, odds makers aren't always right, and I hope in this case they're wrong. So we'll see. We've got about 9 days to go. It's going to be a good one. I think it'll be a lot of fun. And, if Syracuse wins that game, as I've talked about in the past, hopefully all those Tennessee social media accounts and whatnot will stop using the orange emoji, because we literally are called the Syracuse Orange. Any event. We'll move on here. And we're gonna have, this is gonna be a larger picture story about the ACC and kind of its look on the national stage. I've come across a couple different national media outlets as they're doing their preseason prognostications and all that, about individual players and conference power rankings and power ranking the conferences on a whole, that sort of thing. And some of the things I've come across lately, if we're looking at like conferences as a whole, of course, every media outlet out there is going to have the SEC and the Big Ten 1 and 2, or the Big Ten and the SEC 1 and 2. Those are the top. I mean, look at the preseason AP and coaches polls. It's flooded with teams from those two conferences. I get that. And so when I'm seeing the ACC listed at number 3 by some places, maybe other places, the thinking is the Big 12. I don't even care about that. The one thing that kind of irritates me is I'm seeing some of these places talk about how the ACC is top heavy. And maybe I'm reading into what they're saying incorrectly, so feel free to leave a comment saying I'm a moron, and that's all good. I will welcome that kind of feedback. But my takeaway here is that the ACC being top heavy means that, okay, there's a couple of really good teams, at least in the preseason polls, and then it's like further down, And look, I get it, top to bottom, the SEC and Big Ten aren't as top heavy, at least according to these preseason polls. We'll see how the seasons play out. That's why it's like preseason rankings and polls are fun for debates and speculation and just chatting about it. But it's at the same time, it's like, maybe we should just do polls after like 4 weeks of games, because then we'll have a better sense of who's really winning and good and who's not good, etc. But in any event, so I just feel like the ACC, yeah, it's not in the same stratosphere of the SEC and the Big Ten. I get that. And so they have 3 ranked teams in the preseason AP poll, if we're looking at that poll. Clemson is way up there. Miami, I believe, is right in the top 10, and then SMU is a little bit further down. And then you've got teams in either the AP poll or the coaches' polls that were receiving votes, like Syracuse in the coaches' poll, Georgia Tech, Louisville. I'm probably forgetting a few. Maybe Duke was in there. I don't know. Pittsburgh might have gotten a few votes. But I guess my main point here is this. Yeah, so Clemson, SMU, Miami could very well be the top 3 teams in the ACC. Clemson and SMU made the CFP last year. Miami was trending toward it and then kind of slumped at the end of the year, including that regular season finale loss to Syracuse on the Hill, which was like one of the coolest games ever. And those 3 teams look really good. But like, is the rest, like the middle of the pack, like just not going to be good? Are we talking about Syracuse not being very good? Louisville, Georgia Tech, North Carolina with Bill Belichick, Duke had 9 wins last year. Pitt slumped at the end of the year, but let's not forget they crushed Syracuse at home. That was obviously when Kyle McCord had a bad game, but really bad game. Florida State, are they going to bounce back? I guess my point here with this is, and again, feel free to tell me I'm completely off bases. I don't know that it's like the ACC has those 3 teams that I mentioned, Miami, SMU, and Clemson, that are in the preseason top 25s. And then it's like this huge drop off to the next tier of teams where Syracuse could be. I don't know. I just don't see it. I feel like, first of all, a team like Georgia Tech or Louisville could be a sleeper to win the ACC. I don't necessarily think Syracuse is going to win the ACC, but they could surprise folks and win 8 or 9 games against that brutal schedule and be ranked and be good. Um, I'm really high on the Yellow Jackets. I think they're going to be excellent. UNC, I mean, it's Bill Belichick. How can you not like? You have to. I don't think UNC on paper is going to be this amazing team this year, but it's like tough to like. It's kind of like ruling out Fran Brown in a recruiting battle. You can't do it. So can you rule out Bill Belichick? He's never coached in college, but he's Bill Belichick. So, FSU, we'll see what's up with them. I don't know. My point here is that I don't feel like the ACC is like here with those 30 and then this huge drop off for the rest of the league. But tell me what you think. I'm curious. I don't necessarily think that the ACC is like being disrespected as compared to some of these other leagues. They're the third best or the fourth best conference. It's the SEC and the Big Ten with all their big boys. In the SEC, you got Texas at number one, you got Bama, Georgia, Tennessee, LSU, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Florida, etc. The Big Ten's won the last two national championships, Ohio State and the Michigan before that. So you got those two. Penn State looks like a title contender. Oregon was number one for most of last year and then got trounced in the CFP by Ohio State. Illinois looks good. Indiana made the CFP. So I mean, I get it. They've got a more loaded conference, at least in terms of these preseason rankings. But I feel like the ACC could sneak up on some people, just like I feel like Syracuse could sneak up on some people based on their preseason projections and that schedule and all that they had to replace. I think the ACC could as well. And do I think that Miami, SMU, and Clemson will be the top three teams in the ACC? Maybe. Maybe. I can see Georgia Tech being up there, Louisville, Syracuse. We'll see. But I think top to bottom, maybe not all the way to the bottom, but like, top and then mid tier, they're going to have good teams. They're going to have good teams. And do I think there'll be more than three teams that are residing in the top 25 rankings throughout the year? Sure. It depends on how the ACC teams fare in their non-conference schedules, and then obviously they start, with ACC play and start beating up on each other. We'll see how it all shakes out. But I think the ACC is going to be pretty good. So we're going to move here to some Syracuse football players that are in the spotlight, so to speak, as we do see a lot of these preseason watch lists, the all ACC preseason teams, the All-American teams preseason. All this is preseason conjecture, but it's still fun to talk about. And I like seeing Syracuse guys getting some love here. So some of the more recent ones, and I'll kind of go through some of the ones that came like a week or two ago as well, just to mention it. But the one that came, actually two that came through, I believe yesterday. It was this week. Let's just put it that way. I don't know. What day is it? I don't know. Who knows? So Steve Angeli is QB1 for Syracuse this year. Fran Brown named him the starter over Ricky Collins Jr. earlier this week. And then we find out that Steve is on the preseason watch list for the Johnny Unitas Golden Arm Award, which is presented annually to the top upperclassman quarterback in the country. Angeli's a redshirt junior. I think that he's not as proven as Kyle McCord was coming into Syracuse. But Angeli showed that he can play this past year in limited time, including, as I mentioned the other day, in the CFP semifinal when Notre Dame came back to beat Penn State. So is he going to lead the country with like 4,700 passing yards? Probably not. But is he going to be solid? Yeah. Is he going to be all ACC or the top quarterback in the country? I don't know. But I think he's going to be good. So he's on this watch list, and that's cool. And so I just wanted to let you know. Another one. This is cool. I like this. So Will Nixon, who probably on the depth chart for the first game, he's going to be one or two. I think Yassine Willis is going to be one, and then Nixon will be two. But he's going to get his carries. And he missed most of last year with an injury, which, of course, is unfortunate. And it happens in football. It happens in all sports. But, we want him to be healthy this year. We're rooting for Will. He was named to the preseason watch list for the Comeback Player of the Year award. So that's cool. He had limited reps in a couple games last year. Transfer from Washington. He was on that Washington team, if memory serves correct, that made the national championship game and lost to Michigan. and that was 2 seasons ago. I think I got that right. So, and he also played he was at Nebraska before that. So he's got Power Four experience, not a ton of playing experience in terms of carries, but he's got talent, and I'm rooting for him. It'd be great if he was a solid contributor. I think him and Willis will make a nice tandem to replace LeQuint Allen. I don't think either of those guys necessarily this year is going to have the same production as LeQuint, because LeQuint had over 1,000 yards rushing and over 500 yards receiving last year, and I don't think either of those guys this year is going to have that on their own. But together, solid duo. So congrats to Will Nixon on that. That's cool. And as I mentioned the other day, Demetrius Samuel, he's one of 10 top 10 freshmen to watch by ESPN. Yesterday, he was named to 2 days ago, was named to the On3 preseason true freshman All-American team. He will be one of the starting quarterbacks this year for Syracuse, according to Fran Brown. And he's an annual place in wide receiver as well. So just a dynamic two-way player, second youngest player in college football, FBS level this year. He's 17, and that's Syracuse Athletics has said he's the second youngest player. So look for him to, assuming he has a great year, be on true freshman All-American teams and maybe all ACC teams. We'll see. Jack Stonehouse, this was a little bit further back, is on the All-ACC, the preseason All-ACC team, the only Syracuse football player that was on it, which was not surprising. It wasn't surprising that he was on it. It also wasn't surprising that no one else is on it, just given all the new faces or just guys stepping into bigger roles that based on guys having left, whether exhausting the eligibility and heading to the NFL, transfer portal, etc. But Stonehouse is also on the preseason watch list for the annual award for the nation's top punter, which is the Ray Guy Award. I think I got that right. And then I also saw something that Syracuse Athletics had put out, and this was kind of cool. Jonte Cook, who I believe is going to be one of the starting wide receivers for Syracuse this year. He's a transfer from Texas, and he is a member of the watch list. Sorry, I'm just getting my notes here. The watch list for the Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award, which is presented. I had never even really known much about this award, so shame on me. It's an award that's presented annually to the top offensive player in college football who is either from or plays in the state of Texas. And so Cook is from Texas. He played for the Texas Longhorns. He transferred to Syracuse. And that's cool. He, again, doesn't have a ton of production in college, and he's had some stuff that he's had to deal with away from the field. But I'm focused on the field. He's going to be a starter, I believe. I believe he was a former either high 4-star, even a 5-star prep recruit. Tons of talent. So I think he's going to line up as one of the starting receivers. Who else? Daryl Gill, Amari Hatcher, Justice Ross Simmons. You've got some of the younger guys, Jalen Hornsby, Emmanuel Ross. Probably missing a few guys, but there's talent in that wide receiver room, and I think Jonte Cook is going to be one of them. And look, they lost Gatson from last year to the pros, or Ronnie Gatson. Jackson Meeks, an All-ACC performer, is in the pros. Trevor Payne, an All-ACC performer, transferred to Penn State. Okay, it happens. But I think this wide receiver room is going to be good. And I think Jonte Cook will be a big, big part of that. So congrats to Jonte and all these other guys that are, they're on these preseason watch lists. Look, I'm not saying they're going to win these awards, but it's still nice to see them get this recognition ahead of the season. And I'll obviously be following throughout the season which guys remain on watch lists, which guys are in contention for all ACC honors or maybe all American honors. We'll see about all that, but it's cool. It's cool. So with that, we're going to wrap up here with one more segment, and we're going to talk about Syracuse football recruiting at the high school level. So word came out through Rivals earlier this week that a really, really top flight safety in the 2027 class has named his top 10 schools that he'll consider moving forward, and Syracuse is on the list. His name is KJ Caldwell. He's from Georgia. He is a top 10 safety in the 2027 class. He's a top 75 national prospect, overall prospect in the 2027 class. And this guy's the goods. He really is. He last year as a sophomore, he won different awards and honors for his play for Parkview High School in Lilburn, Georgia. I totally probably butchered that. Lilburn, Georgia. Just looking at my notes. Okay, Georgia. So if you'll recall, Fran Brown, before he came to Syracuse football as the head coach, was the most recently the defensive backs coach at Georgia. And he's also a defensive backs coach previously. And KJ Caldwell is from the state of Georgia. And he plays defensive back. Does that mean he's going to pick Syracuse? Of course not. But it's cool to be in this list cut. It's better to, as I always will say, it's better to be in a list cut than not, even if you don't end up winning out for every, top flight recruit. Still better to be on these lists. So his top 10, let me just read it here. It's Georgia, Georgia Tech, Miami, NC State, Nebraska, Syracuse, Tennessee, Texas Tech, Vanderbilt, and Wisconsin. And I think he's visited some of these schools, and there's chatter that he's looking to visit all of them. We'll see if he visits Syracuse. As I will often say in recruiting stories, if a guy doesn't visit your program at all, even if it's an unofficial, then you're probably not going to win out, because I just don't see that happening. So look for Syracuse to hopefully get a visit, game day visit, whatever, from Mr. Caldwell. And he, again, is one of the best safeties in 2027. I was looking through his X page earlier this week. He played at one of the Under Armour Next camps. They have these showcase events throughout the year. And he was named defensive back MVP. But that's still cool. Very cool. So he's legit. He's good. And Syracuse faces tough competition for him. But I never count out Fran Brown, especially when it's a recruit from the South and it's a defensive back. And so Syracuse right now, and we'll obviously continue to update these kinds of, articles, or not articles, but segments on recruiting in terms of where Syracuse is in the rankings. We had one earlier this week on Syracuse's 2026 class. So if we're looking at 2027 right now, and it's early, these are rising juniors, but right now in 2027, Syracuse has 4 verbal pledges. They're all 3 stars. And this class, according to the 247 Sports, 24/7 Sports, I always say that wrong, 24/7 Sports, the composite rankings, it's number 4 in the country right now, that class. So it's super early. Other teams are going to pick up higher rated guys and move up. Syracuse hopefully will pay. They're in the market. They're in the hunt for, Caldwell and other 4 or even 5-star prospects in 2027. So they have a great class in 2026, solid class in 2025, and we'll see what happens with 2027 and beyond. But, if I'll leave it at this, I feel like Syracuse has terrific momentum on the recruiting trail, and it certainly helps having Fran Brown and other excellent recruiters on staff. But they certainly need to win games this fall. Even if they don't go 10-3 against that brutal schedule, if they pick up some quality wins over ranked teams, get to a bowl, have a solid season, that'll help with recruiting as well. What we don't want to happen, just generally speaking, but also from a recruiting standpoint, is for Syracuse to just lay an egg this year and win like 2 or 3 games. And against that schedule, a lot of folks are thinking 6-6 would be successful. Again, it depends on which teams they're beating and which teams they're losing to. But Syracuse can help themselves out collectively with another strong season, and that will lead to more success on the recruiting trail with guys like KJ Caldwell in the 2027 class and beyond. So that's a wrap for today. I hope you're enjoying the show. Leave me comments, good or bad. I look forward to chatting with you again tomorrow. We'll continue to do Syracuse football as well as Syracuse basketball and recruiting, rumors, stories, intel, etc. This is Neil Adler on Syracuse with Syracuse Central on the Fan Arch Network. I appreciate you tuning in. Take care. I'll talk to you again tomorrow.